Francois Heisbourg, very much welcome to the Swedish Institute of International Affairs. You are one of the security policy experts in Europe with a realistic approach, knowing history, and now you're here looking at the new security situation in Europe and in Sweden and Finland. You've been part of writing a report on the possible consequences of NATO membership for Finland, but you take a very broad approach. I would like to ask you, first of all, you used the concept of the indivisibility of security. It used to be something that we felt made us feel secure, because we knew that many aspects went into security. And then you said in a discussion that indivisibility of security is actually a difficult one today. What did you mean by that?
I meant it in the following way. We have been talking for years about the indivisibility of security at a time when it didn't matter, because actually it wasn't true. That is, issues in Rwanda, in the Balkans, the Persian Gulf could be dealt with largely separately. This was due in large part to the unipolar nature of the international system, with the United States as the hyperpower and the West as the ideological hegemon. But then, of course, the world has changed. We are now in a truly multipolar world, and in the case of Europe, we are dealing with a number of challenges. One is a traditional great power challenge with Russia, and the other is the various challenges, notably the non-state challenges in the Middle East. And all of a sudden we discover that our security space to the east and to the south is not only quite threatening, but it is also a single space. You cannot think about Syria and Ukraine separately. Certainly President Putin doesn't think about the two separately, and I think that he is right in this respect. That is, yes, there is a continuum in strategic terms where we cannot oppose the challenges of the South to the challenges of the East. We are facing a spectrum, and in the region, of course, here, you have a specific single strategic space, which is the Baltic area. And the Baltic area, if security is indivisible in the Baltic area, that means that if something goes badly wrong, for example in the Baltic states, a country like Sweden cannot stand aside. It will not be, quote-unquote, protected by a policy of non-alignment. In this sense, the status quo, the old recipe, is no longer adapted to the exigencies of the indivisibility of security.
When we spoke in here at the round table, you made sure to project a large map, not only of the Baltic region, but of Europe within its both eastern and southern neighborhood.
Indeed, and that was entirely deliberate, and I would add it was actually quite difficult to get the map done.
But it is there also in the report. In speaking about this security space, you have characterized Russia as agile. Many of us have come to think of Russia as tactically proficient but strategically questionable. What do you mean by Russia's agility?
Well, agility is not the word one normally associates in historical terms with either Tsarist Russia or the Soviet Union, a very powerful state, but a rather plodding one, not used to jumping, but used to working ahead progressively. Russia has become in some ways more like France or Britain or Israel. That is, a country capable of taking decisions in the security and the defense realm very quickly, and to implement them in military and strategic terms also very quickly. This is agility, this is nimbleness. In the case of Russia, this comes at the service of a policy which is one of deep unsatisfaction vis-à-vis the security institutions and the rules of the post-Cold War era as they evolved from 1989 onwards in the following years. And you see this in the manner in which Russia has been able to do the annexation of Crimea, the manner in which it has launched its Syrian operation. In both cases, two very technically proficient, very impressive operations.
But they have an economy the size of Spain, a population the size of Japan. They are challenging in north to the Arctic, eastwards, westwards and south. Are they not overstretched?
You're absolutely right. But then if you are in that situation, where do you get your leverage from? You get your leverage from agility, and you get your leverage from unpredictability, precisely because you do not have a military depth. You do not have military volume. You have quite a small military. You have a defense budget in Russia which is about twice the size of that of Britain's or France, even less actually than twice. So you make up for these intrinsic weaknesses by a policy of high mobility, of high instability, and this is the danger.
The unpredictability.
And in some ways, and of course all analogies are imperfect, and one has to be careful about them. But it's not the size of the GDP of a country which determines either its strategy or its level of danger to the international system.
And sustainability.
Think Japan, 1941. Which attacks a country which has a GDP 20 times its own size, and for all sorts of reasons, it takes the United States of America close to 4 years and a couple of atomic bombs to deal with it.
What is Europe's response to this? Are we developing a common foreign and security policy to respond to these new challenges?
Well, I wish, first of all, that we decided who we was. Who are we? Are we the European Union with Britain? Or are we without Britain? I'll be able to answer that question on the morning of the 24th of June, hopefully. Are we the full European Union of 28? Are we the Eurozone? If we federalize the Eurozone, this obviously has implications for the looser union which would surround the Eurozone, and that would include, of course, implications in security and defense. I don't know how to answer these questions.
So yet another hard assessment of where the European Union is. Last word about Sweden.
Sweden has to deal with the issue of membership of NATO in security and defense terms. It must not be a substitute for party debate, for party identity, or even national identity. When I mean national identity, Sweden has had a policy of neutrality for more than two centuries now, which has served it actually quite well. But it's not the issues of identity which should determine the outcome of that debate. It is really hard-headed talking and thinking about about security and defense interests. That debate has yet to begin in Sweden.
Thank you for visiting the Institute.
Thank you very much indeed.